All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about what Stephen Espinoza had to say about Terence Crawford, JARON ENNIS, and Devin Haney in an absolutely terrific interview that was on Twitter last night on a channel called a space, called Chicken Talk. Let's talk about that in this video. Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video again we are going to talk about the welterweight division / lightweight division. Stephen Espinoza gave an interview on Chicken Hawk, a space on Twitter, for several hours. Absolutely great information came out, and in this particular interview he talked about potential of signing Terence Crawford to Showtime, also signing whether he would sign Devin Haney, and the deal that came about where they gave a multi-fight deal to JARON ENNIS. Very, very enlightening as far as what's going to happen in the welterweight division moving forward and how it could affect the ERROL Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight. But before I get into that, though, let me welcome you once again back to the channel. Your support in the channel is greatly, greatly appreciated. If you are not a subscriber to the channel, I would invite you to subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos, and make sure you hit all so that you get all of them. Also, if you wager on sports, sign up to our betting partner, BUSR, at busr.ag/Fanon. Use the promotional code Fanon, and there are constant values and promotions going on there. All right, so let's get into this. Stephen Espinoza is the vice president of programming, sports programming. And I'm sure that's not his exact title. Forgive me for messing up his exact title, but he's the guy that runs HBO boxing and also the combat sports that they have on Showtime. I hope I didn't say HBO. He runs Showtime boxing and the MMA and different combat sports type of programming that they have on Showtime. In my opinion, he's the best boxing executive that there is. Very, very experienced. Used to be, I do believe he was maybe the chief legal officer for Golden Boy Promotions at a time. I do believe at a certain point in time he was also maybe have been at HBO, but I know for certain at a point he moved over to Showtime, and he was the guy that signed Floyd Mayweather Jr. to a multi-fight deal. And really blew up Showtime boxing and made Showtime boxing, pretty much the premier boxing U.S. boxing network that there is right now. It used to be HBO. ESPN is involved in boxing, but nobody really has the dedication to the sport of boxing that Showtime has. And so he was interviewed on Chicken Hawk, and there was a lot of people asking a lot of different questions, but the ones that I found really, really interesting were he was asked about whether or not he would sign Terence Crawford to a long-term deal. And he was also asked, several times whether or not, what he thought about the ERROL Spence Jr. And Terence Crawford fight being made. He was also asked whether or not he would sign Devin Haney to a multi-fight deal if Devin Haney was available and no longer, on DAZN. And it's a very, very enlightening into the man's thought process. And this is pretty much what he said about it, and is that, for Showtime, that JARON ENNIS, and here I'm synthesizing the things that he said and giving you my opinion of what he was trying to communicate, but I'm synthesizing it. I'm not giving you a direct quote from him, so just make sure that you can always go to Chicken Hawk. I do believe that whole interview is recorded, so you may be able to have access to that. If not, check out one of the guys that run that show, and maybe they can get you access to the recording. But what he said was that as far as Terence Crawford and whether or not he would sign Terence Crawford to a deal with Showtime, the short and skinny of it was not as situations are right now. He pretty much echoed what Eddie Hearn said about Terence Crawford, in that, look, man, we don't know if we would really be able to get him a lot of fights, right? And he's like, with a guy like Terence Crawford, who's going to want a lot of money, is going to want to be in big time fights, we don't know if we really have those fights to offer him. So more than likely, as it stands right now, he would not sign Terence Crawford. As far as Devin Haney, he was asked the same question about Devin Haney, and he said, look, as far as, the fight, and it was the same kind of thing he said again, he said before, he's like, look, Devin Haney made really smart moves. Can't blame him for making a lot of money when he was over there with DAZN, and when they were overpaying Devin Haney for the fights that he had. But, what they did was that they made a mistake. Well, not a mistake. He didn't say a mistake, because he said he can't fault Devin Haney and Bill Haney for going for the money. But he said they made a calculated decision to go over there and get the big paychecks from DAZN. However, in doing that, he cost himself a lot of visibility, cost himself a lot of buzz around his name. And, at this point in time, he doesn't, this is Stephen Espinoza saying, does not have the fights for big fights for Devin Haney. So even if Devin Haney became available, at this point in time, he wouldn't sign Devin Haney to a deal with Showtime. So the short and skinny of that is that, pretty much, and here's the thing. I'm reading between the lines a little bit with him, because when I look at the fights that are taking place on Showtime and the actual fighters that they have on Showtime, right? Those guys they have guys in those weight classes. Now, at 100, for example, Devin Haney, at 135 pounds, they don't have really a lot of guys at 135 other than the biggest name at 135, the biggest draw at 135 pounds, which is Gervonta Tank Davis. They also have an up-and-coming fighter at the lightweight division named Michel Rivera, the guy who is, I do believe, he's signed. Well, at least Michel Rivera, I do believe, maybe signed to Al Heyman and not signed to Showtime directly. But he's a guy down there that they have for Devin Haney to fight. They also have another lightweight down there, up-and-coming lightweight, who is actually promoted by ERROL Spence Jr., named Frank Martin, who's at 135 pounds. If you look at 140 pounds, they've got several guys at 140 pounds, that fight on Showtime or related to the PB or are with the PBC or PBC affiliated type of promoters like Gary Antoine Russell. Got fights, guys like Matisse down there, right? So there are guys down at that weight class for him to fight. Same thing, obviously, with Terence Crawford. With Terence Crawford, you have Sean Porter, you have Danny Garcia, Sean Porter's retired, forgive me. You have Danny Garcia, you have Keith Thurman, you have ERROL Spence Jr., you got your Danis Ugas, you got Butiev, you got Stanosis. Pretty much all of those guys are associated with the PBC and also fight on Showtime. So there are definitely the fights that are there for these guys. But so when I listen to Stephen Espinoza talk, it sounds more like, look, we have the money in the fights. We just don't have the money in the fights for you. That's what it sounded like to me, even though he was being very, very politically correct and being very professional and not insulting or trying to demean or disrespect any of the fighters. But it was clear that he did not see either one of these guys as really prized commodities, where when you talks about JARON ENNIS, he talks about JARON ENNIS as if this is a real prize commodity where he can really line up fights and has, an opportunity to build him over time. Now, obviously, when you compare, JARON ENNIS to Terence Crawford, the situation is different, because you have a guy later in his career who want those big fights now, and JARON ENNIS, who you really can build through a 2 or 3 fight setup in order to get him to the championship fights and then ultimately bring him into fights with the other big name guys that they have fighting on or around that network. And when I mean around that network, I mean the combination of the guys that fight on Fox and the guys that fight on Showtime, because those fighters really do bounce, have been bouncing in between the two. But, I just find that really, really interesting. And it's going to be now for Terence Crawford right now, it speaks volumes about who Terence Crawford is going to fight next, right? Because this is almost, again, Stephen Espinoza saying, man, look, and he actually answered that in the question, was like, if both of these guys want $20 million a piece for this fight, then it's going to be difficult to get these guys that type of money. We don't. And so when asked about the ERROL Spence Terence Crawford fight, he sounded like, basically, he's like, there's more hope for it now than there was before. Right. But what does that mean, that there's more hope for it now than there was before? Right. Because now he's not signed with Top Rank, and he doesn't have that that hurdle in the way of having to deal with Bob Arum and deal with the, you know, the cross promotional issues that come about, right? However, didn't particularly sound, you know, greatly enthused about the prospect of it actually happening. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting stuff. Definitely go check out Chicken Hawk and listen to the interview yourself. It's like 3 hours long. Or 2.5 hours long. A lot of good stuff out there. But anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.